Greetings, friends. You're watching Ruslan Belov's channel, and today we'll take a detailed look at the situation in Ukraine as of October 20th, 2025. The day has been intense, events are unfolding rapidly, and each of them could become a turning point. So let's get straight to the point. A few days ago, the meeting between President Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky came to an end. But even though the talks are officially over, new details keep emerging. Today, for instance, the Financial Times published an article citing its own sources who claimed that during the closed-door negotiations, Trump issued a direct ultimatum to Zelensky. The quote passed to journalists sounded like this: "Either you accept the terms of the Russian Federation now, or Ukraine will cease to exist." According to those same sources, this phrase reflected the harsh atmosphere in which the meeting took place. Moreover, reports suggest the dialogue between the two presidents was extremely tense. Both Trump and Zelensky raised their voices. Their exchange resembled a verbal battle rather than a diplomatic discussion. After the meeting, Trump publicly declared that the United States would no longer supply Ukraine with weapons, explaining that America itself needed armaments to maintain its own combat readiness. Zelensky left Washington in silence without giving a single press conference. Yet upon returning to Kiev, he once again spoke with confidence. In his statements, he emphasized that Ukraine would not accept Russia's demands and would not surrender a single square kilometer of its land. He vowed that the country would continue to resist, even if American support weakened. To keep that resistance going, Zelensky needed to legalize the extension of martial law and mobilization. And this morning, he submitted draft laws to the Verkhovna Rada, extending these measures for another 90 days. The documents were registered under numbers 401 and 418. The vote will take place tomorrow, and there is little doubt Parliament will approve both bills. This means martial law and mobilization will remain in force at least until February 2026, and therefore the war officially continues. Zelensky's plan had been different. He had hoped to return from the United States with promises of Tomahawk cruise missile deliveries to justify new mobilization measures at home. But receiving nothing, he was forced to extend mobilization, practically empty-handed. Now Ukrainian sources warn that the country's energy situation is deteriorating, and large-scale blackouts are only a matter of time, and of how often they will occur. Now let's move to the military situation. We'll start with the Kherson direction. For several weeks now, reports have indicated that the Russian army confidently holds positions on the right, that is, Ukrainian, bank of the Dnipro. Today, new information appeared. Russian units once again crossed the river near the village of Pokrovsk. Soon afterward, it became known that as soon as Ukrainian forces detected Russian sabotage groups on their side, they hastily withdrew from the area of Sadov village. This sector forms a serious bridgehead. The terrain is confined between two rivers, creating a favorable configuration for defense. If the Russian side decides to fortify positions in Pridneprovsk and Sadov, with proper logistics and drone support, Ukrainian counterattacks would become extremely difficult. For now, these are still assumptions and unofficial data, but the trend is obvious. Even last week, there were reports of Russian activity in southern Kherson, particularly around the Ostriv and Korobel districts. Yet no firm confirmations have appeared so far. Next, we move to the Zaporizhia front. First, the western Zaporizhia direction, the area around Stepnohirsk. Today, pro-Ukrainian outlets published footage showing Ukrainian artillery and FPV drone operators striking Russian positions in Primorsk. However, analyzing this footage through objective control imagery, one can conclude that Russian units are gradually advancing. Their goal is to push the enemy out and gain control over the entire line from Stepnohirsk to Primorsk. Some Ukrainian mapping services have indirectly confirmed this. Their maps do not yet color the territory red, but the neutral gray zone has noticeably widened, a sign of Russian movement forward, which may soon be confirmed officially. Now to the eastern Zaporizhia direction. Here, Russian forces continue their advance toward Huliaipol, and it is precisely in this sector that the most significant changes have occurred in the past 24 hours. Yesterday, the Russian Ministry of Defense and the command of the Vostok Group officially confirmed the full capture of the settlement Poltavka. A video was released showing the battle for that locality. Artillery strikes, FAB bomb drops, drone operations, infantry assaults, and street clearing. In the final scenes, Russian soldiers raise flags at several points in the village. Based on this footage, experts have confirmed that Poltavka is fully under the control of the Russian armed forces. Yet the advance didn't stop there. In the same videos, several fragments show soldiers hoisting the Russian tricolour inside the neighbouring settlement of Okhotniche, located north of the Poltavka stronghold. Analysts updated their maps accordingly. The entire Poltavka defensive area is now marked as under Russian control. With this fortified zone cleared, the Russian army has gained the ability to enter operational space and move westward toward Huliaipol. But first, it must overcome another defensive belt, the Uspenivka line, slightly to the north. Today, some pro-Russian sources claimed that Novonikolaevka was already taken by Russian troops. Later in the evening, other sources refuted this, clarifying that the settlement remains contested. Nevertheless, immediately after the capture of Poltavka, Russian aviation began delivering massive strikes on forest belts and strongpoints southwest of Uspenivka. Everything indicates that Russian forces are preparing to outflank the defense line. The main blow will likely come from the west, creating a threat of encirclement and a potential collapse of the Ukrainian defensive line. Movement is also reported on the northern flank of the Uspenivka front. Short clips appeared today showing 2 Russian soldiers raising a flag in the northern part of Zlahoda village among several ruined buildings. These shots have already led a number of military analysts to update their maps. Comparing the situation to October 19th, the front line has clearly shifted. The Russian army continues to advance slowly but steadily toward Uspenivka from the northwest. It seems increasingly difficult for Ukrainian forces to hold this settlement. Once it falls, a large-scale offensive toward Huliaipol will likely begin. Now we move to the Pokrovsk direction, where important developments are also taking place that deserve close attention. We'll start with the settlement Molodetske. Today, the Russian Ministry of Defense officially reported that the locality known as Lenina has been fully cleared. Lenina was its old Soviet name. Molodetska is the name it received under Ukrainian authority after 2014. Thus, we're talking about the same settlement, which, according to the ministry, has come under the control of the Russian armed forces. So far, no confirming geolocated evidence has been published, but Russian progress in this area has been noted for a long time. The capture of Molodetska opens a new potential axis of advance into the Dnipro region along the T0406 railway line, running through Novopitorodne and farther west toward Mazhova. This locality is strategically important, a crucial supply hub for Novopavlivka and for the entire sector of the front. Now let's move directly to Pokrovsk. Here the map has again changed visibly. We've already noted that a large-scale offensive in this direction began around October 10, 2025, with strikes launched simultaneously toward Mirnohrad and the western outskirts of Pokrovsk. Since then, the map has been adjusted daily in favor of Russian forces. Today, new data emerged that significantly alter the picture of the city's situation. More and more experts now agree that it's no longer a matter of months. Most likely within the coming weeks, Pokrovsk will fall under full control of the Russian army, together with neighboring Mirnohrad. Ukrainian sources today published a video showing an airstrike on the railway station in the central part of Pokrovsk. It was precisely this facility that was hit by an aerial bomb attack, and based on that footage, many mapmakers have updated their data, marking further Russian advances along the railway line. In the same footage, one can also see a strike on the industrial zone located along Highway 320525 in the northwestern part of the city. These materials, released by the Ukrainian side itself, have forced even pro-Ukrainian analysts to alter their map designations. In addition, some sources claim that Russian units have managed to push even farther north, reaching the area of Olympiyska Street. The distance between the outermost Russian positions in northwestern Pokrovsk and neighboring Rodinske is rapidly shrinking. More and more experts admit that the city is, in fact, encircled. At this point, entering or leaving Pokrovsk is already impossible. All supply and evacuation routes are cut off. The Russian army continues its offensive, and the complete fall of the city appears to be only days away. Reports are also coming in about the so-called Shakov breakthrough area. According to some data, the Russian army has cleared the settlement of Novoshakov. Several mapmakers have already made preliminary adjustments, though official confirmation has yet to appear. This stretch of the front is becoming increasingly quiet. The flow of information is decreasing, and the Ukrainian side is abandoning attempts at counterattacks aimed at cutting off and eliminating the pocket that has formed there. The reason is simple: a shortage of manpower. In the Pokrovsk and Kostiantynivka sectors, the Ukrainian side is now facing serious problems. Its reserves are practically exhausted, and launching offensive actions has become impossible. Added to this is the failure of the diplomatic front. The talks over Tomahawk missile deliveries ended with nothing. Zelensky did not receive a single unit of weaponry, and the entire media campaign built around this issue lost its purpose. The Ukrainian army is once again switching to defense, trying to hold at least its current positions and prevent any further Russian breakthroughs toward Zaporizhia and the borders of the Donetsk region, which Zelensky had earlier promised not to give up under any circumstances. Now let's move to the Lyman and Siversk area. Fighting there has not ceased. The main clashes are taking place near the settlement of Dronivka, confirmed by both Russian and Ukrainian mapping resources. These are prolonged, heavy battles. The terrain is complicated by a river and a railway line, making any advance extremely difficult. However, the most critical events are unfolding between Lyman and Zaporizhia. It is within this forested area that one of the fiercest and most important battles is currently raging. The Russian army has approached Lyman closely, repeating almost the same route of its advance from 2 years ago. Back in 2022, it was the capture of the southeastern part of the city that triggered the collapse of the entire Ukrainian defensive line in this direction. Today, according to several mapping platforms, neutral, pro-Russian and even pro-Ukrainian, Russian units are now only a few hundred meters from the city limits. It's possible that even tonight, or perhaps at this very moment, the first Russian assault groups have already entered the outskirts of Lyman. Some sources claim that sabotage and reconnaissance groups are already operating on the city's edge, conducting reconnaissance before the main forces move in. The situation in the Lyman sector remains extremely tense, and all signs point to urban combat breaking out soon, after which the front line will once again change. A bit farther north, in the area of Novoselivka, Russian troops have improved their positions, occupying several sectors within the small village. There are also reports of progress within the settlement of Drobyshev. Some sources claim that Russian units have even entered Yarova, presumably from the east or north. If these reports are confirmed, the Ukrainian garrison in Novoselivka will be completely surrounded. The Russian army would then be able to cut off all supply routes to Drobyshev and Lyman from that side, allowing it to intensify the offensive both toward Lyman itself and farther on toward Sloviansk. On the Kupiansk front, no major changes have been recorded, but activity remains high. Russian FPV drone operators continue to work intensively. Every day new footage emerges, showing Ukrainian units attempting to leave Kupiansk in small groups, while civilian cars try to evacuate wounded soldiers or personnel. But the Oskil River is under heavy fire control, and the chances of crossing it are minimal. Recent footage shows yet another evacuation attempt, ending with a vehicle being destroyed almost immediately after detection. Meanwhile, from the eastern side, from the direction of Pishchane, the Russian army is gradually advancing along the railway line toward the settlement of Kurilivka. Judging by incoming reports, we may soon see the first video confirmations of combat in this area. Kurilivka is part of the eastern section of the Kupiansk-Uzlovy agglomeration, and if it falls under Russian control, the entire Ukrainian defense line in this sector will be threatened. In the Vovchansk direction, Russian forces continue clearing the city. Ukrainian units are attempting to bring in reinforcements to stabilize the front line, mainly around the Vovchansky Kutori area and the northeastern part of Vovchansk itself. However, Russian FPV drone operators are very active in the air, and published footage shows Ukrainian infantry columns and vehicles being struck right on the approaches to the city. That's all for today, dear friends. Thank you for staying with us. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and follow new updates. Important events lie ahead.